I'm Claire Reynolds. My mother, father, sister, and brother abandoned me at Charlotte Airport as a joke, then live-streamed my meltdown. With my best friend's support, I plotted my return, confronted my mother, father, siblings, and left home to start anew, dignity intact. I should be stepping into a family reunion, not standing alone in a terminal that feels miles away from home. My name is Claire Reynolds, I'm 27, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona, when my phone buzzed with that group text. Come join us this weekend for a surprise getaway. I felt my heart lift. I pictured my family clustered around me. Mom's easy laugh, Dad's teasing grin, my little brother's endless questions. I threw clothes and toiletries into a duffel bag, shoved my nearly dead phone into my purse, and raced out the door. By the time the flight landed in Charlotte, North Carolina, I was practically vibrating with excitement. My mind replayed the plan. We'd share stories over coffee, maybe drive to that lakeside cabin Dad always brags about. I grabbed my bag from the carousel and scanned the arrivals hall. No one. My chest tightened. I tapped my phone, no new messages. A moment later, my screen lit up. A text from my sister, "Hope you enjoy solo time," followed by my brother's gif of a tumbleweed rolling across a dusty plain. I blinked, staring at the messages like they were a bad joke I could wake up from. But the clock on the wall ticked, and the terminal remained empty. Panic clutched at my throat. How could they have done this? I backed away from the sliding doors, my suitcase wheels echoing in the cavernous lobby. My palms felt clammy as I hunted for my family's numbers, tapping call over and over, voicemail. No answer. My breaths came fast, shallow. The laughter I'd imagined died on my tongue, replaced by a hollow ache. In that instant, this wasn't a surprise getaway, it was betrayal. I turned to the rental car desk, my suitcase in one hand, phone in the other. The agent looked at me with polite concern when I stuttered out my name and reservation. I didn't meet his eyes, I couldn't. All I could think was that I was hundreds of miles from Phoenix, stranded by the people I trusted most. As I signed the papers, my reflection in the glossy counter morphed into someone I barely recognized. Nervous, alone, furious. I grabbed the keys and pushed through the glass doors into the humid North Carolina air. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would drown out every mocking ding of a new message. I threw my bag into the backseat and slid behind the wheel, hands shaking on the steering wheel. There was no cabin, no hugs, just miles of road and a family who thought this was funny. I started the engine, and I realized I'm on my own now. What am I going to do next? I jammed the rental car key into my pocket and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the empty terminal windows. My chest still ached as I navigated the airport lot, headlights cutting through the dusk. I'd driven on autopilot, replaying every text on my screen. Solo time. Have fun. The cruelty burned hotter than the North Carolina humidity. I dialed Mom, nothing but her voicemail greeting. Then Dad, my sister and brother one by one. No answers, no apologies, just the cold click of a disconnected call. The road out of the airport stretched ahead, the flat asphalt a cruel reminder that I was on my own. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them blur my vision. I cranked the AC, rattling the windows as if I could blast away the knot in my throat. Memories of my 6th birthday, the frosting smudged cake, my family's cheers, flashed in my mind. Everyone felt like a lie. How could they mock me like this? How could they think it funny? By the time I spotted the neon vacancy sign of a roadside motel, my phone was dead. I fumbled for change, then swiped my card at the machine. The engine clicked off, and a hush fell over the parking lot, broken only by my ragged breathing. I grabbed my suitcase and trudged toward the single-story building, each step heavier than the last. At the check-in counter, the clerk, an older man with kind eyes and a name tag reading Roy, watched me collapse onto the stool. My fingers shook as I slid my license and credit card across the counter. He cleared his throat. "Rough day?" he asked quietly. His voice was gentle, but I shrugged off the concern, coughing out, "Just need a room." Roy's eyes flicked to my suitcase and back to my face. He offered a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Room 12 ready. Here's your key." He pushed a strip of plastic toward me. "If you need anything, extra towels, a wake-up call, just let me know." I nodded and took the key, the weight of his unspoken pity settling in my gut. I thanked him, voice tight, and turned away. The fluorescent hallway lights buzzed overhead as I reached my door. My reflection in the peephole was pale, unrecognizable, like someone who'd been abandoned at an airport without a clue. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Room smelled of stale carpet and lingering disinfectant. I dropped my suitcase on the bed and sank onto the edge, the springs groaning beneath me. My phone lay on the bedside table, a lifeless brick. I stared at it, willing it to ring to prove this nightmare wasn't real. Silence answered. I pressed my forehead into my hands and let the tears come. Then, through the haze of betrayal and shock, a single thought flickered. I can't let them break me. I wiped my cheeks, grabbed my phone, and forced myself to stand. Because tomorrow I have to move, and I have no idea where to start. I woke to the drone of my phone buzzing, like a swarm of hornets intent on stinging me awake. My eyes fluttered open to the faded floral wallpaper peeling at the corners. The motel clock glowed 7:14 a.m. My phone lay against the nightstand lamp, its screen alive with notifications. I rolled onto my side, heart pounding, and unlocked it. The group chat was on fire. Nice solo vacation. Claire face with tears of joy. Don't forget to send postcards from the middle of nowhere. A string of mocking emojis followed by a video link labeled, "Watch her freak out." I tapped it, stomach churning. The video showed my family's living room, balloons strewn about, a half-eaten cake on the coffee table, and my relatives clustered in front of a webcam, laughing. They titled their live stream, "Claire's Meltdown." A view counter blinked, hundreds watching. My hands shook so badly that I nearly dropped the phone. I staggered into the bathroom, flicked on the light, and stared at myself in the cracked mirror above the sink. My dark circles had deepened overnight. My cheeks were streaked with yesterday's makeup, half erased by tears. I stared at the haunted woman in the glass, exposed, ridiculed, stripped of dignity. I splashed water on my face, the cold shock anchoring me to the moment. My reflection wavered, but I forced my shoulders back. No more tears, no more begging. My breath steadied as anger welled up, hot and fierce. I shut the bathroom door and leaned against it, eyes closed. They wanted a show, so I'd give them one on my terms. I dialed my sister's number, thumb hovering over call. My finger trembled, but I pressed it anyway. It rang once, twice, and went to voicemail. I hung up and left a message. "This isn't funny. I know what you did, and I'm not going to let you get away with this." I ended the call and returned to the bed, eyes fixed on the muted TV in the corner. I punched the remote, static. No cable, no distractions. Just me and the hum of the air conditioner. I pulled my suitcase from the bed and rummaged through it until I found a small notepad and pen. I flipped to a blank page and wrote at the top, "Fury Unleashed." Underneath, I jotted down a single word, "Dignity." Then a question, "What will they do when I refuse to cry?" My jaw clenched as I wrote. I pictured their surprised faces when I didn't crumble, and I stood tall. Their laughter would choke on its own cruelty. I'd show them the power of quiet strength. I closed the notepad and tucked it into my jacket pocket. My phone chimed again, another mocking text. I let it sit, unanswered. I grabbed my suitcase handle and headed for the door, pausing to flick off the light. The motel room faded into darkness behind me, but the fire inside me burned brighter than ever. Outside, the morning sun cut through the humid air, promising a new fight, and I was ready to win. I found a flicker of hope in the glow of a diner's cracked Wi-Fi sign. I sat in a vinyl booth, phone balanced on the table, fingers tracing the screen as I searched Charlotte bus station schedules. Each result felt like a lifeline. I bookmarked a Greyhound departure for tomorrow afternoon, 6 hours away from this stale motel, 6 hours closer to my family, and 6 hours for me to steel myself. I looked around the empty diner. A lone waitress polishing coffee pots, stale pie behind glass, and me, keyed up with fear and determination. My phone buzzed again with another taunt from my sister. I silenced the group chat without opening it. No distractions, no more fuel for their cruelty. I opened my contacts and scrolled to Lauren. My best friend's name sat there like a promise. My thumb hovered over call as my heart pounded. Shame clawed at my chest. What could I say? I pressed the button. "Hey," I whispered when she answered. "Claire, you called early, everything okay?" Her voice carried concern across state lines. My throat tightened. Not really. They, my family, they set me up, left me here." Lauren went silent for a beat that felt like a lifetime. "You're serious?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm stranded. My phone's almost dead. Sit tight," she said firmly. "Give me your location. I'm booking a room at my place. You can crash there tonight." Leaf flooded me, mingled with guilt. "I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing, you're my friend." I repeated her words like a mantra, letting them sink in. She gave me her address and told me to stay in the diner until she texted when the room was ready. I closed my eyes and let a single tear slip free. No shame, only a crack in my armor that Lauren's kindness sealed shut. I booked the bus ticket with trembling hands, reserve paid, departure time confirmed. Seat 14A. Tomorrow at 2:45 p.m. the bus would roll out of Charlotte toward her doorstep toward safety. I screenshot the confirmation and sent it to my email. My phone glowed with Lauren's next text. "Room booked. I'll meet you in the lobby at 7. Love you." I stared at the message, the words "love you" warming my chest. For the first time since I'd landed, I felt something other than rage and heartbreak. I drained the last of my coffee, set the empty mug on the sticky tabletop, and let myself plan the next moves. Pack light, charge my phone fully, rest, face tomorrow's confrontation with clear eyes. When I closed my fist around the ticket confirmation, I felt solid, anchored by friendship and newfound resolve. I stood up, paid my bill, and slung my suitcase over my shoulder. The waitress offered a sympathetic smile as I passed. I nodded, unable to speak. Outside, the afternoon sun baked the parking lot. I lifted my chin and took a deep breath of warm air. Every mile I traveled would bring me closer to the reckoning I'd promised myself. I pressed ignore on the family group chat one last time and walked toward the bus station sign I'd spotted down the road. Tomorrow, I'd face them, not as a sobbing victim, but as someone who refused to be their punchline. Because I'm done running. And tomorrow, it all begins. I gripped the armrest as the bus rumbled out of the station. every mile rattling the knot in my stomach into submission. I pulled the folded packet of stationery from my jacket pocket, each sheet addressed to someone who shattered my trust. One for Mom, one for Dad, one for my sister, one for my brother. My pen hovered above the first page. Dear Mom, you taught me kindness, so why did you trade that for a joke? My handwriting trembled, but I forced each letter neat and unbroken. I didn't want tears to ruin this. As the afternoon light streamed through the window, I read my words aloud under my breath. My voice caught on phrases like, I trusted you and I deserved better. I practiced the tone I'd use at home, firm, unwavering, without the quiver I'd felt in that motel room. This isn't petty revenge, I whispered. It's an assertion of my worth. Across the aisle, an elderly man dozed, and I envied his oblivion, but I couldn't afford to sleep. My purpose was too clear. I flipped to Dad's letter. You were my hero, I wrote, and heroes don't abandon their child at an airport. My pen paused as the bus hit a pothole, sending a jolt through my arm and the page. I drew in a breath and kept going, memories of my father cheering at my graduation fueling each line. I glanced at my phone, battery at 22%. I'd need more power before I arrived. But first, these letters. I tucked my phone into my pocket and pulled out my small camcorder, a gift for my last birthday. I clicked it on quietly, testing the lens. If they tried to gaslight me, deny everything, I'd have proof. I aimed it at the window, the road slicing past like a countdown to our showdown. I drafted bullet points on my phone's notes app, read letters aloud, film their reactions. Stay calm, demand apology. I tapped stay calm and laughed softly at myself. Calm wasn't guaranteed, but I wanted them to see the strength in my steadiness. I imagined their faces, confusion, guilt, perhaps shame. I pictured Mom's eyes widening, Dad's jaw clenching, my siblings shifting uncomfortably. This wasn't just for me, it was for every moment they'd laughed at my expense. The bus driver's voice crackled. Next stop, Greensboro. My heart thudded. I stood and stretched, shoving the letters and camcorder into my bag. My reflection in the tinted window looked determined, someone reborn by fire. Back in my seat, I pressed record again, filming my own face. Claire Reynolds, I mouthed silently, age 27, Phoenix, Arizona, because they needed to know who was speaking, who they'd underestimated. I whispered into the lens, I am not your punchline. A mother and her toddler boarded at the next stop, the child's laughter a stark contrast to the turmoil in my chest. I smiled at them, gentle, resolute, as I shut off the camera. My hands steadied, my breath evened. I looked down at my phone, battery 18%. I plugged in the travel charger and watched the percentage tick upward. Each percent felt like reclaiming a piece of power, and the bus rolled out of Greensboro toward home. I pressed my forehead to the window and closed my eyes, picturing the confrontation ahead. No more hiding, no more tears, just truth laid bare. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I whispered to the empty aisle, come at me. And I was ready. I could taste the tension before I even stepped through the door. The front porch light was on, pale glow against the gathering dusk. I stood on the welcome mat, heart hammering like a war drum. My suitcase and the packet of letters felt impossibly heavy in my hands. I pressed the doorbell. Inside, I heard shuffling, then the dull thud of footsteps. The door swung open to reveal my mother first. Silk robe, curled hair, a smirk playing on her lips. Behind her, Dad lounged on the couch with a beer, and my sister and brother hovered at the edges, phone cameras at the ready. Their eyes widened when they saw me. Surprise, amusement, something like regret flickering before it died. Claire, Mom said, voice syrupy, you made it. I inhaled slowly, locking eyes with each of them in turn. I did. Without another word, I laid the letters on the hallway table. Read them, I said, voice cold, all of you. Mom scoffed and picked up the first letter. To Mom, she read aloud, voice mocking, you taught me kindness, so why did you trade that for joke? Her laughter cut through the air like broken glass. Oh, poor baby. Read it, I repeated, stepping into the living room. My suitcase thumped against the hardwood floor, my reminder of every mile I'd traveled to stand here. Dad grabbed the next envelope. His face flickered as he read. You were my hero, and heroes don't abandon their child at an airport. He swallowed hard, his smug grin faltering. I crossed my arms. I trusted you, I said softly, and you shattered that trust. My sister clicked record on her phone. This'll go viral, she whispered to my brother, who snickered. Her amusement ignited something in me, an ember turned inferno. I picked up the camcorder from my bag and aimed it at them. Say something, I challenged. They froze. The room's humidity thickened with guilt. My mother's laughter caught in her throat. My father's jaw clenched. My siblings backed away, eyes darting. I cleared my throat and unfolded my scripted speech. I came here expecting a family reunion, not a public humiliation, I said, voice steady. You turned your cruelty into entertainment. My mother tried to wave me off. Claire, it was a harmless prank. Harmless, I echoed, stepping closer. You left me alone hundreds of miles from home, stripped me of my dignity, and then invited strangers to laugh at me. Dad opened his mouth, but no words came. The letters lay on the table like evidence of their betrayal. I lifted the final envelope. This one's for you, Alex. I handed it to my brother. Maybe you'll learn empathy. My brother's hand trembled as he took it, glanced at my sister, whose eyes brimmed with something, shame maybe. I lowered my voice. I'm done being your punchline. I demand an apology. Silence pressed in. Neighbors peered through the windows, phones in hand, witnessing the fallout of a cruel joke gone too far. Mom's shoulders sagged. For a moment, I thought she'd break. But then she drew in a breath and said, "I'm sorry you feel that way." My chest tightened. That half-hearted apology wasn't enough. I let the camcorder capture her words so she couldn't backtrack. I took a step back. Not feel what you did, meaningful words matter. Dad finally spoke. "Claire, we didn't think." "Thought what?" I challenged. "That I'd just laugh it off." His gaze dropped. The room crackled with unsaid regrets. I set down my suitcase. My letters lay between us like a bridge we couldn't cross. I raised my chin. "This is my dignity, take it or leave it." My mother's eyes darted to the envelope. My father closed his mouth. My siblings swallowed. The air was electric, each second stretching into eternity. Then I turned on my heel. I walked out the door, the frame of my childhood home behind me. My suitcase rolled over the threshold, leaving echoes of every cruel laugh in its wake. As I stepped onto the porch, the dusk swallowed me, and I realized I will never go back. I didn't need to look back to know the house was frozen in my departure. Every footstep down the sidewalk felt like shedding skin I no longer needed. Inside, I'd heard my father gasp, my siblings' chairs scrape against the floor. My mother's apology, half-formed, half-hearted, hung in the stale air like a bad scent. They were still lingering in the doorway when I closed it behind me, the click of the latch my final punctuation. I paused under the porch light, the letter lying on the kitchen table buzzing in my bag like a wounded thing. Its words, my words, were bridges burned and boundaries drawn. I demanded they acknowledge the pain they caused, demanded real remorse, and they'd given me only polite murmurs and defensive postures. I pressed my palm flat against the cool wood of the door, feeling its faint tremor, and whispered, "This is where it ends." The street was empty, the neighbors' curious stares I'd imagined refracted back at me through the front windows. The dusk shadows lengthened, swallowing the tidy lawns and pastel siding. I let myself feel the ache, a tangle of sorrow for what I'd lost and relief for what I'd reclaimed. My chest tightened, and tears blurred my vision, but this time they were tears of clarity, not panic. I hefted my suitcase onto the cracked concrete and rolled it toward the car. The gravel crunched under the wheels, a staccato soundtrack to my newfound freedom. My phone buzzed with one last unread message from my sister. I resisted the urge to check it, sliding the phone into my pocket instead. The unanswered messages could wait. When I reached the driveway, I paused to look at the house one more time. It was the home I'd known for 27 years, the source of childhood laughter, birthday candles, shared secrets. But tonight, it felt like a theater stage where I was forced to play the fool. I squared my shoulders, tightened my grip on the handle, and turned away. The engine roared to life, and I backed out, headlights cutting bright arcs through the gathering night. The air smelled of cut grass and jasmine, something bittersweet that made my throat clench. I swallowed hard, blinking away the moisture, and shifted into drive. As the taillights of the house receded, so did the weight of their expectations. Each mile I put between us was a step toward the unknown, toward a life I'd have to build from scratch, with only my strength and the kindness of those who believed in me. I glanced at the letter tucked beside me on the passenger seat, its edges soft from my grip. I wondered if they'd ever read it again, if my words would echo in quiet moments and force them to reckon with their cruelty. But that was their journey now, not mine. I pulled onto the highway, the white lines stretching ahead like a promise. Relief washed through me, mingling with a sharp sting of loneliness. I thought of Lauren's waiting smile, of strangers on Reddit who'd sent messages of solidarity, of the life I'd choose next. Part of me still ached for the family that abandoned me, but a fiercer part pulsed with pride. I had stood up for myself. The road unfurled before me, dark and winding, and I realized this was only the beginning. Where would I go from here? I never imagined liberation would feel like packing a suitcase in someone else's living room. I'm sitting on Lauren's couch in Seattle, the skyline's neon glow bleeding through her windows as I fold yet another sweater. It's been weeks since I walked away from that house in Greensboro, and every crease in my clothes feels like a stitch in my new life. My phone buzzes with notifications, messages from Reddit strangers, offering support and sharing their own stories of standing up to cruelty. "You deserved better. Welcome back to yourself," they say, and each one warms me like a small flame. Lauren is in the kitchen, humming as she makes tea. I glance up and see her smile, the one that reminded me I wasn't alone. I think of Phoenix, my old home, and the family that turned my worst moment into their entertainment. But that life belongs to someone else now. My hands are steady as I zip my bag. The tremors of betrayal have faded into determination. On my laptop screen, r/true off my chest glares with my post. I confronted my family and walked away. Thousands of upvotes sparkle beside comments like "You go, girl," and "Your strength is inspiring." I read one aloud. "You turned pain into power." I close the lid gently, feeling a pulse of pride. This story, my story, is no longer theirs to mock. The tea arrives steaming in a mug with "You've got this" printed on the side. I wrap my fingers around it, breathing in the warmth. I think of the confession booth of that motel, the diner spotlight, the swaying bus, and the living room confrontation, all chapters in a story I refuse to let them write for me. Now, I'm the author. I pack the mug last, nestling it beside my favorite journal, pages empty and waiting. I'll fill them with plans, a job application in marketing, a weekend hiking trip, maybe a permanent move. The world suddenly feels vast, ripe with possibility, and free from the punchlines I once feared. As I stand, suitcase in hand, I feel a jolt of excitement. The door to Lauren's apartment swings open, and the night air carries the sound of distant traffic and possibility. I step outside, the mug's warmth guiding me like a lantern. With every ending comes a beginning. I whisper to the dark street, and as I walk toward the future, lighter, braver, wholly myself, I know this is only the prologue. What happens next is mine to decide.